I live in one of the former Soviet republics, and I run a small urban exploration YouTube channel. I post videos of my explorations of creepy abandoned places, of which there is no shortage of. For the most part, the only thing creepy about these places is that they've been abandoned and are disconnected from the rest of society. I often have to edit my videos quite a bit, adding wicked screams and sinister silhouettes to make them even remotely interesting. Last week was different. So I went to visit an allegedly abandoned military experimentation site from the Soviet era. I had to explore it. The thought of it was euphoric. I'd get more views and shares than I ever had before. I was considering bringing my friend along since the site was considerably more remote than the rest. I abandoned the thought, not wanting to waste any more time in finding and preparing an accomplice. I embarked on my solo mission, as I had done many times over in the past year. The desolate facility was remarkably difficult to locate, and the day had already drawn into afternoon by the time I had managed to find it. The building was nothing spectacular to look at. If I was to describe it simply, I'd say that it was a giant rectangular concrete slab with doors and windows placed in a mundane pattern. I didn't begin recording until I had entered the dull gray structure. I feared that many would abandon my video right after seeing the extremely boring architecture of the building's exterior. As soon as I had entered the building, I felt an uncanny feeling of dread course through my body. Chills ran through my spine and my hair stood up straight. I ignored this feeling, ever motivated by my passion for my YouTube channel. I chalked up the uneasiness to a bad case of nerves and persisted on. A certain coldness emanated from each room and seemed to dissipate as I climbed into the higher floors of the building. The next 2 hours were uneventful, to say the least. I explored the entirety of the building, ignoring the sense of unease that left the hairs on my back stand up. The building had some peculiar artifacts such as isolation cells and weird testing chamber contraptions, but nothing struck me as inherently sinister about it. I was too busy faking reactions to them and thinking of the views that I would get, oblivious towards the implications of these uncanny apparatus. I was on my way out, happy to have recorded so much when I saw the padlocked door to the staircase that led downward. The sun had gone dipping below the horizon, and the sense of eeriness had only been amplified. The fear I had was overpowered by the thoughts of making another video dedicated to the basement of this abandoned site. 2 videos for the effort of 1, I thought. Taking no more time to think further, I excitedly strolled towards the metal doors that nature had certainly tarnished over the years. The padlock was similarly rusted and weak. The 2 wrenches trick seemed to do the trick. It snapped off with a cleanliness I hadn't expected. I felt like a mayor cutting the ribbon to a new building in the city. The elation that ran through my veins had blocked out the looming sense of dread momentarily. As the door opened, I was met with a putrid stench. I felt the atmosphere grow warm and humid. I should have turned back right there, but my curiosity and ambition propelled me forward. The basement was quiet. Too quiet. The corridors were narrow, and the doorways led into large rooms. I'd never been more thankful for my massive 100-watt LED flashlight, the one that lit up every crevice of the uncanny hallways. As I walked into one of the rooms, I was surprised by its peculiar 2-segment design. While one part of the room was an observation post, the other was a massive enclosure being overlooked by the aforementioned observation post. These observation posts were most abnormal in their structure, a small room with a few seats, metal desks separated from the larger concrete enclosure by 5-inch thick glass. What was even more surprising was that the larger segment of the room had no doors or windows. No way to access them except by breaking the 5-inch thick glass. The entire basement was just a repetition of these identical rooms. They had been abandoned in a hurry. That much was clear from the notebooks and mugs still on the desks of the rooms. But what had they been observing? And what could these empty concrete hollows with no clear path of entry or exit have held? These questions were answered when I entered the last room on the most secluded corner of the basement. I knew something was inside from the muffled footsteps I heard. The footsteps were too discreet and coordinated to be animalistic in their origin. These footsteps did not resemble the sound of 1 or 2 people. It sounded like a crowd was walking inside the damn room. I should have turned back right there. There was a sliver of hope then. But now there isn't. As I walked into the room, my gaze was immediately transfixed on the scene before me. An army of what appeared to be people, all having halted their previous activity, staring at me with cold, transfixed glares. Though they appeared human, there was something morbidly wrong with them. Some inexplicable feeling told me that this silent lot of abominations had nothing human left in them, bar their physical resemblance. It was in their movement and their eyes, their aimless stares transcribed horrors in my mind that cannot be wholly comprehended or explained. The real horror began when they started to speak. They spoke in unison, their voices a macabre cacophony of sounds that should never have been heard, much less understood by the sane mind. They spoke in a morbid and infernal tongue, one from realms far outside this world, yet somehow inexplicably comprehensible. They told me things I never want to hear. They spoke of the universe, they spoke of their past. They spoke of things beyond the veil of sanity and reality. Their Tartarian language was one that no sane human had uttered before. It was a language each person was familiar with, yet so detached from at the same time. I have no words for the things they say, but each word served as a foul memory of things the mind does not want to comprehend. I didn't want to listen to them, yet I was transfixed. I wanted to know, regardless of how nightmarish the sound of each wretched syllable was. Their damned speech lasted a fraction of a second, and an eternity at the same time. Within that dreadfully long instant, they had made my mind witness a myriad of unearthly horrors that it should not and cannot comprehend. Somehow, within those horrors, they had told me of how they had become this way. How whatever that was human about them was replaced by this abominable monstrosity that resided in them all. Through harrowing riddles and stories, they told me of their origins. The scientists at this facility that had tampered with their minds and somehow created drugs that allowed these test subjects to reconnect with memories that the mind would rather keep hidden. I could never fully repeat the extent of the horrors each syllable transcribed in my mind. Most I could do was provide you with a summary of how they had become this way. When we were very young, and when we were unconscious, our minds were not fully capable of fending off against antagonistic forces that infiltrate and fester in our unconscious. When we're young, we haven't fully developed a defense to these forces. When we're asleep, our minds must rest so they can continue this hidden struggle amongst those damn forces the next day. Mother Nature protects us from these memories of terror and anguish. Mother Nature shields us from the repulsively macabre and abominable thoughts that lie in the infinitely dark recesses of the mind. She hides away these memories in inaccessible vaults, never to be opened by the developed or fully conscious human mind. What these researchers had done here was made these damn memories accessible to the conscious mind and had subsequently unleashed a darkness that no one can fully understand. I don't recall how, but I managed to leave that wretched place and return home in the midst of darkness and night. The unforgiving stars providing no consolation from the horrors that I had beheld. In the days that followed, my feelings of fear and dread had been replaced with one much worse: hopelessness. Not only had I been witness to horrors outside the veil of sanity, but I had been exposed myself to a repugnant and contagious illness of the inner mind. Let me explain. It's been a week since I visited the facility. I've deleted all the footage I captured as to deter others from ever wishing to explore these accursed halls. This feeling of hopelessness has birthed from an urge that I've been having as of late. I began thinking in the otherworldly tongue those abominations spoken. I mean, not deliberately, but out of an inexplicable urge deep down within me. An urge I can't explain. I fear it's not long before I start speaking in that infernal language too. Before I too become an abomination out of a man. I'm going to make sure I don't become one amongst these shells of human beings that now mindlessly roam within wretched halls, mumbling in a language that's becoming more and more familiar to me every day. Please don't go exploring places you shouldn't. You may just learn a new language. Like I did. Hey there kids, it's me, Mr. Creepypasta, and thank you so much for listening to tonight's story, whether it be an episode of something, or tonight's podcast, or tonight's YouTube. I hope all of you are staying safe in the current pandemic craziness. If you guys are missing out on some of the artwork from some of your favorite artists, you can always check out the description down below, where I'm linking over some of my friends who are not able to do conventions, seeing as all the conventions this year have currently been shut down. So if you're missing out on some of the incredible artwork you can normally get from them, a group of my friends, or a lot of different friends of mine, are all found in the description down below. And a very big thank you to all my Patreons, and you can always join them at patreon.com/MrCreepypasta. People like Jordan Alexander Sanchez, Ken Lando Higuchi, Brianna Van Tine-Janzen, Chompski, TheRedOakShieldVirus, Sindee Barney, G Weevil 3, Diana Kraus, Stephen VanHuss, Chance Burnett, Tristain Pelton, Nico, TheGingerBroz, Dante Rowe, Raphael Rodriguez, Lastbladesong, Eliminator 86, Nebsky, SteampunkSinner, Kaleb Dougal, Daniel Poulsen, Sky Harbor, The Homeless Bird 93, Bobby Carmen, Liam Newman, Aaron Stormcrow, Barbara Macedo, Thomas Burgett, Azazel Rotten, Let's Get Scared, S-Man, Andrew Kirisuba Warnock, Bad Honey, Creepypasta Adam, Someone You Love, Brennan Wright, Said the King 56, and Somber Puppet. Thank you guys so much for your continued support, to all of you on Patreon, you guys that are down there in the description, and everyone else. And thank you all for listening and watching and being subscribed. Sweet dreams.